Hello everybody, and welcome back to another Kings of War Battle Report. I'm Visibly Riley, and this week we take a break from our Ratkin Nightmare to bring us a different kind of nightmare. We're going to take the battle all the way to the Pit of Despair, facing with the Nightstalkers versus the Empire of Dust in a 2300 point battle of dynamic control. First up, we have my opponent's Empire of Dust list. It opens with a regiment of skeleton spearmen, followed by 2 troops of revenant cavalry. Then we have 4 hordes of enslaved guardians, one of whom has the Blade of Slashing. Then we have 2 hordes of enslaved guardians archers, terrible name. Followed by a monolith, a soul snare, the revenant champion with an undead horse and the crystal pendant of retribution, ooh, spicy, and Sebek Ray, the mandatory. This list is 25 points off. It's only 2275. I have no idea where the last 25 points were spent, but this is all I can remember. Moving on to my Night Stalker army. Well, it's a little weird. So I opened with 2 hordes of scarecrows, followed by a regiment of doppelgangers. Then I have 2 mind screeches, 8 regiments of soul flares, a horror with the Inspiring Talisman, Aura Vicious, and Bane Chant 2 replacing their Lightning Bolt 3, and finally Esanishra, the apparently unpronounceable. So yeah, this is my 2300 point list. I will offer a small disclaimer. The Soul Flayers in this, I only have 2 regiments painted right now, so the remaining 6 are just hot nonsense. But the rest of my army is, fully painted and, it's all the correct models and all that, so not too much of a nightmare, but a bit of one. Moving on to Dynamic Control. I believe we played this one in the last battle report, but I'll go over it anyway. Starting at the end of the second player's third turn, you divide the board into 6 2x2 squares and add up the total unit strength of each player's units within each square. If a unit is straddling the line between 2 or more squares, it is considered to be in the whichever square the majority is, blah blah blah, it's just control from there. Then the player who has the highest unit strength in each square controls it. The square in the middle of your opponent's half of the board is worth 2 squares instead of 1 to you if you control it. If you control more squares than your opponent, score victory points equal to the number on the table below at the end of your player turn, 1 VP for controlling more squares on turns 3 through 5, and 2 VP for controlling more squares on turns 6 and 7. Note, you only score victory points during your own turn, and the highest VP, of course, wins. It sounds a little wordy, but again, I try to keep these as close as possible to the Mantic wording, so I use a lot of the the control wording in this, just to make it a bit simpler. But it's essentially just control you score every turn. It's pretty easy. So here is what the table looks like if we divide the table into 6. As you can see, this side will be mine, so this center square is worth 2 to me or 1 to my opponent if they control it, while this square is worth 2 to my opponent or 1 to me if they control it. So it's worth 2 squares, 1 square, pretty easy. So moving through the terrain real quick. We have 2 height 9 forests. We've got 1 here, 1 here. Again, the pictures, it's difficult. I'm not a particularly tall man, and these are waist high tables, so it's difficult for me to actually get an aerial shot of these. But waist high? Yeah, I guess they're about waist high. I'm looking at my opponent, but at their waist, but they're also taller than I am, so it's probably a little higher in me. So anyway, it's a little difficult. But we have 2 height 9 forests, followed by 3 height 3 hills. Then we have 1, 2, 3, 4 height 2 obstacles, followed by 1, 2, 3 impassable pieces of terrain or blocking terrain. I still don't like that nomenclature. I prefer impassable. So we have a height 5 one, and then we have 2 height 7s, and that's going to do it for the terrain. So no difficult terrain, a lot of hills, an interesting table all in all. So let's go through the deployment after this. So we're going to start over here on this top left with the Empire of Dust. First up, we have the first enslaved guardian horde, followed by the second, and then of course Sebek Ray hanging back here. I believe these models are from One Page Rules. They're quite nice. They're very simple, right? They're very basic models. They remind me of Games Workshop in the early aughts, maybe even the mid 90s, if you're into that, which sometimes that's just what I want to paint, big thick lines, but mostly just having that hard edge. A lot of modern models, including most of Mantic's, just have very soft detail, so it's nice to see someone harken back to these, I think. In the middle of the table, we have everything. So we have the Enslaved Guardians Archer. We have those 2 hordes right here. In the middle of them, we have the Revenant Champion with the horse and the crystal pendant, and behind them are both Rev Cav troops. I will mention that during this game, I was looking at these and I was like, oh yeah, I was still in that second ed mentality of what the horse cav for Empire Dust were back then instead of Rev cav. So I'm like, Def 4, whatever, I'll just shoot at them, they're nimble, forgetting that they are, in fact, Def 5, right? Simple mistake, especially for an army I play. But anyway. And off here to the right, we have a lovely Anubis-based monolith. I can't wait to see this painted because it's another way to do that sort of monolith idea. A lot of people do the floating rock, right? But essentially an avatar of a god, an uncaring god who just comes down and sort of like casts Surge and is very difficult to fight and will not fight you, right? But will take damage in an ethereal manner. I think that's a cool idea. In front of them, we have the Skeleton Spearman Regiment. To the right of that, we have the the third and fourth Enslaved Guardian Hordes, and behind it, the Soul Snare. So quite the, not really a compact army, but I see my opponent getting a lot of use out of their limited STLs, I'm guessing. But, you know, with how good Enslaved Guardians are and how kind of meh most of the rest of Empire Dust is, this seems like a match made in heaven. So anyway, facing off against that, we have the first two Soulflare regiments. As I said, the Soulflare regiments are not going to be very pretty. We have two regiments of Soulflares. We have my Doppelganger regiment, and we have the third regiment of Soulflares. In the center of the board, we have both my Scarecrow Hordes, behind them both my Mind Screeches, the Horror with the Vicious Aura, Inspiring Talisman, and Bane Chant 2, and the 4th Soulflare Regiment. To the right of that, we have the 5th Soulflare Regiment, Esanishra, and I believe the 6th... Wait, no, I've got to have another picture. The 6th, 7th, and 8th Soulflare Regiment. So went really hard on this. It's actually kind of fun. This list can pump out 52 Wind Blast and 59 movement, including the Enthrall from Esanishra. So it's a real, if I want you in the corner, I will put baby in a corner. So anyway, let's move on to turn 1. So turn 1 ends up going to the Nightstalkers. I believe I won the roll-off and chose to go first, just because I wanted to take the center and really leverage the amount of Wind Blast I have. My opponent has intelligently chosen to do a lot of blocking moves, right? You can see in the middle, these, you know, the Chaff, Revenant Cav are just blocking the archers from being wind blasted back. That is a fair idea. But I move forward with the Soul Flares. I'm still going to go for some Wind Blasts, and I don't really feel the need to dash forward with any of them because, you know, I'd rather maintain a bit of a battle line. But I do move some of them onto the hill just for easier line of sight if the Enslaved Guardians move forward. And then I, of course, am going to get the Wind Blast that I can. And Esanishra just runs on forward to hide behind this blocking piece of terrain and wait for her opportunity to mess around with Sebek Ray. Now, I did sort of blindly deploy this. I was like, oh yeah, I want to go after Sebek because it's so good. Kind of forgetting in the moment that the true target should have been the Soul Snare, of course, right? Esanishra is very good at killing a Soul Snare, and the Soul Snare is very dangerous for my army because that Drain Life does not take the stealthy. So I think that's a bit of a deployment mistake by me. I was thinking, you know, go after Sebek, but it might be difficult against a canny opponent to actually mess around with Sebek or even get that Enthrall off, right? So I don't know. Maybe a small mistake there. But anyway, you can see on the right here, I do the exact same thing. We just roll on forward. I'm protecting my Doppelgangers a little bit. They're my only real combat unit. Soul Flares, I brought to the US Masters. I've run them a lot, but I've only, I've run this, or a style of this list. I played it at 2,000 points. In case you're wondering if 2,000 points reduces skew, depends on the skew, doesn't it? You can still bring 8 regiments of Soul Flares. So I've run it before, but I've never run this particular version, right? But anyway, the point with Soul Flares is that they do have some hitting power. Right now they are 9 attacks, 3+ to hit in melee, Crush 1, Thunder 1, which is pretty good, but it's not enough to really assure a kill. Every time you go in, you're kind of, you know, going like, please, Dice Gods, don't screw me over. So the only, like, real big combat unit I have are these Doppelgangers, because, of course, my opponent has so many Enslaved Guardian Hordes that I can steal their attacks, and Enslaved Guardians are pretty good at killing Enslaved Guardians. So anyway, and then I take the hill with both my hordes of Scarecrows. This one, it just toppled a little bit, but it is supposed to be 50% on the hill. And then I kept myself out of, I believe, the charge range of any units. Yeah, including the cav, just in case my opponent goes for something weird. And yeah, so if they rush forward, I can charge down the hill and get my Thunder 1. So anyway, that's going to do it. Let's see how the Wind Blast does. So first off, with my Wind Blast, I just push these units around as much as I can. Of course, Sebic Array is back blocking this one, but I can see over that unit, so I think I might have gone for a Wind Blast on Sebic, pushed him back, and then pushed this one back. Maybe push that back a little bit too. But I will push you around, and I will, and I will. And over here, the only thing I can push back is, or I can push back both these Enslaved Guardians. This one I push back 4 inches, this one I push back 1, I believe. I'm just trying to logjam my opponent a little bit. You can utilize Wind Blast in an interesting manner to stop people from being able to pivot easily. If you knock them, well, with this Empire Dustlass is not the biggest thing, but like if units go in front of these archers because they... if they move, I believe they still have pot shot, right? So, but they might not be able to move and shoot. But basically, if you like the cav run in front and I Wind Blast them into you, the cav can only move directly forward before they have to pivot. So you can really limit movement, limit charges too, if you're good at it, which I'm not particularly great at it, but it does work. So anyway, that's going to do it for my turn 1. I do fire my Lightning Bolt. I don't know if I grabbed a... Yeah, I guess I Wind Blast this guy? Yeah, and that guy. And then I tried to, I guess, Wind Blast the Soul Snare for fun. And I'm sorry, this is on the next turn. That's right. Okay, let's go back some pictures. Just because I forgot to mention, I went for a... some Lightning Bolt onto the Revenant Champion. I got 2 wounds onto him, which is alright, but then the Revenant Champion chooses to just run forward and face off against some Scarecrows, and let's see how that all goes. So we've got this guy casting a Surge onto the unit of Enslaved Guardians I knocked back, so, you know, making up that 4-inch Wind Blast with a 4-inch Surge, I believe. And then the Soul Snare goes for a Drain Life, really lovely model there. Gets 4 wounds onto one of my regiments of Soul Flares, so, but does roll the dreaded double 1, although it's not the biggest deal here, and needed a 9 to waver. Still 4 wounds is really good. It only has 9 shots and wounds me, or hits me on 4s, wounds me on 3s. That's good. Good damage. And over here, I believe this is just showing up that Sebic Ray is backstopping this unit. Maybe, oh no, Sebic Ray is going to go for a Surge as well, and surges this unit of Enslaved Guardians forward. This ends up being an interesting thing, but I'll talk about it during my turn, just because of the distance they went, because I believe this was Surge 5, so it went full 5 forward. And here's the end of turn shot. Let's talk a little bit about these movements. First off, the archers fired, both hordes fired at my horde of Scarecrows. I believe they did 3 or 4 damage, maybe even 5 damage. They did all right. But I'm still going to take this charge into the Crystal Pendant. I have to clear that out. It's too dangerous for my army to deal with, especially something like, the Doppelgangers. I don't want taking that Crystal Pendant damage. So I'm going to try to take it on one of my hordes of Scarecrows and just assume that I'll roll low, right? The Crystal Pendant is a big random bit in terms of the damage it does. In general, you use it to block your opponent from being able to advance forward, right? Because you can't overrun forward. Once you kill them. So that's like, it tends to be the big move. So in this case, I'm just going to try to kill it off real quick. And I don't really care if the Scarecrows can't go forward. It's fine with me. So anyway, I said I'd talk about this move. And that's because if my opponent had surged 4 inches forward, I think they were actually safe. But since they went 5, this unit right here is on the hill, can see this edge, and this edge is within 20, and I'm definitely in its flank. So I have a flank charge with one of my Soul Flares. Fortunately for my opponent, this piece of blocking terrain is stopping me from getting a front charge and a flank charge there. But still, I have Esanishra who can go in. I believe she's also on the flank. She can see the front, but she'll just fly over and charge there. Still, I have Dread on Esanishra. I have, that'll be 18 attacks on 3s and 3s, and then 5 attacks on 3s and 2s with Dread. So that'll be an interesting one. And turn 2. So turn 2, as I said before, I do the exact thing I was talking about. So I go into this flank. So here I'm looking for, 9 wounds on average. So 7 wounds would be fine with me. And then Esanishra putting out, like 3 wounds? 2 to 3 wounds, right? So 9 to 10 is, I would say the minimum 8, right? With a mean of around 11. Right, so, plus the Dread, I'm like, okay, so this is a big move, it could blow up in my face, but I decided to play with it anyway. This move, I think, is a bit of a mistake. I moved forward with this unit of Soul Flayers so I could get some Wind Blast going, and also I'm threatening these Enslaved Guardians archers. But if I don't kill this unit, right, that's an easy flank. So I think I probably should have spent a bit more time messing around with this, because Soul Flayers do not have Nimble, which a lot of people forget, including me when I was first trying them out. But yeah, they're not Nimble, so I can't just, like, pivot. And easily hide myself. So after seeing this, yeah, I definitely should have just kept them back a little bit and made it at worst a front charge, right? Gone for some more Wind Blast maybe. Or just flown over the line and messed around in the back here. And, if my opponent wants to surge, they can surge. So anyway, I do better with this unit. Currently, this unit is in their flank, cannot charge. They, of course, could surge, but they surge my front because the corner is blocked. So yeah, I'm fine with those. And over here, yeah, this was a bit weird. My opponent just walked into my doppelganger's range, and it's one of those comments that you never want to hear from your opponent, which is, wait, are those doppelgangers? And you go, yeah. He's like, oh no. And oh no is right. Because, these are now vicious doppelgangers, because I do have this barely within 6. Vicious doppelgangers that are also Enslaved Guardians, and then I can Bane Chant this unit that I throw in for a little extra damage as well. So yeah, I'm not thinking these Enslaved Guardians are gonna last long. And then I've got these two guys just sort of chilling out. My plan here, I put both of them, because again, keep in mind that you don't measure from any point when you're firing a ranged attack, such as a spell. Measure from your leader point. So I placed my leader point just barely within 18 of the monolith with this unit, and then this unit is a lot closer, so I'd have to roll pretty big. The point being that if this unit rolls big enough that this unit cannot Wind Blast the monolith will be out of 6 inches of this unit anyway, so I'm just looking to knock the Inspire out, which is the same over here. The plan is to push Sebek Ray, who is actually very inspiring, so I gotta get him out of 9, but that is quite possible, just because I have so the plan is I have a line here, right? I have a line here, I'm not sure I'm in 18 there, but I have a line here, and then if I push at least 1, this unit has a line, because I'm height 4 with the Soul Flayers. So anyway, with that out of the way, I do charge in with my Scarecrows into the Revenant Champion, just looking to take him out. I, of course, get the Vicious Aura within there as well. And then I move these two guys in the back here, because my plan is, I'm like, oh, I really need to do something about that Soul Snare. So I set myself up to get some Lightning Bolts onto it. This red leader has a hill, so, not taking the cover bonus. And of course, Lightning Bolt doesn't take stealthy for some reason. And then blue leader over here, yeah, they'll have cover against it, but still, I think that's a clean shot. I would like to use my Lightning Bolt to start threatening these archers, probably, because they're only defense 4, but with my Esanishra misplay, I believe, I'm going to have to do something about this Soul Snare quick. So that's going to be the plan. And here we go with my Wind Blast. I do Wind Blast the monolith. It is outside of 6 now of the Enslaved Guardians. It is still within 6 of the Soul Snare, which I managed 4 wounds onto with the Lightning Bolt, so that's going to be an 11 rerollable. I don't, bank on that one happening. And over here, yeah, my opponent insisted that I take a picture like this, where he puts all of these tokens to show off the Crystal Pendant. It does go off. Of course, I roll insane with it. So yeah, it looks like I did. That my opponent only did 3 damage last round with the range, because I rolled 10, of course, on my 2d6, and all 10 wound me, which is fair. Scarecrows are only defense 3. But now I'm sitting at 13 wounds out of my 21, and I'm like, oh no, I'm open. Like, if my opponent gets an even mild bump in their damage from those Enslaved Guardians, because that's like 6. Let's see, they do about 8 or 5 damage, on the mean, and that's gonna put me at a 3 to die. So I'm like, stupid Crystal Pendant. Anyway, I got rid of it at least. And I'm not super sad about it. And over here, yeah, things work exactly as I wanted them to. I managed to kill off the Enslaved Guardians using these 2 units, and then I fall back with my Doppelgangers a little bit, and then just turn these guys slightly. to be in front of the doppelgangers, right? And I'll show that in a bit. But over here in the flank charge, yep, I unfortunately hit the bottom of my average here, only doing 9 wounds. That makes it a 7. It's not rerollable because, again, I Wind Blast the Septic Ray away, but of course I roll 5, and this unit is alive, which is problematic. But again, this was kind of a big play. You know, just like I've said a lot in these games, I do a lot of stress testing when I'm playing weird stuff. And I will mention, my opponent actually, when I was setting up this game, I was like, "Oh, do you want me to play like some new, you know, like Clash 2022 stuff, right? I've got a list for that for Abyssals that I'm messing around with, or do you want me to play like a weird jank list?" And he was like, "Oh, I'll take the jank list, please." And I was like, "All right, man." So anyway, when you're playing a list like that, yeah, it's fun to see, you know, if it can pull stuff like this off. And if I had rolled just slightly better here, even the 7, right, that's still in my favor, right? You know, because it's a 55% chance with no reroll. Even a slight bit in my favor here, and this is a dominating position to be in if this horde's dead. But it's not, so instead we move on. So here is my end of turn shot. As you can see, this unit is now exposed to an easy flank. This unit is an easy flank. They could also go for a surge rear if they wanted. But this unit over here is still threatening, and these guys are the only thing that can really challenge them, so that'll be fine. I'm outside of 16 for the possible charge there. You can see the the scarecrows just fell back. They don't have too far to go. The doppelgangers, this is the final positioning. So the point here with the doppelgangers is I fall back. I have my flank blocked by this blocking piece of terrain, and then when I pivot this unit, I've now locked it so this unit right here cannot charge in. I will admit I didn't intend to do this when I was first doing it, but I feel I might have intuited that that was a solution, right? But I was really just trying to block off this Enslaved Guardian from being able to get to my doppelgangers, because I was like, well, I don't really care if these spearmen can. And again, a lot of people will throw something like spearmen into doppelgangers going like, yeah, you can copy my bad stats, but you know, you won't get it. But I don't know, doppelgangers are still pretty good against those units because I make myself vicious. I have the Bane chant, right? And then I have you're on my side of the table, so I can always come in and support. So anyway, point being, this is an interesting position to be in. And let's move on to turn 2 for the Empire Dust. So yeah, as I said, it's a bunch of flank charges. This one is hindered, so that's something. And yeah, the cab move forward. The point of both these cab moving forward is that they wanted to be able to draw line of sight without cover, because of course cover stacks was stealthy and they didn't want to be on 9 shots on 6s instead of 18. So this unit can fire here. This unit though has cover against this unit, so it had to fire over here if it didn't want to fire at a unit for cover. So now I'm looking at maybe 3 wounds, 2 wounds, and I can survive that, right? So like this unit at 9, that maybe one more, so 3, 16 I can do. 5 rerollable, not the best, but not the worst. And over here on the right, as you can see, as I said before, when I set this up, it was not my intention to block it. It's just what happened. And my opponent was like, okay, so I move over here, you know, and I set myself up that I hit my corner into the doppelgangers with the surge, and then I get the charge there, right? And then we discovered that that's not possible. And, you know, he was like, okay, so I think I'm just going to roll the surge into this. And he only rolled 2 surge. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's farther than 2 inches, but I was like, I don't want to roll it back. I don't want to do any of that stuff. So, you know, and he was like, I mean, do you want to just count it as like, we can just move these things over? And I'm like, well, no, right. Cause that's the way the game works. It's just not possible. So yeah, in this case, I was like, we'll just, you know, because I couldn't come back and remeasure this, and I'm like, it's so close in this picture. Like, I'm pretty sure that's over 2, but it's going to be like 2.5 inches maybe. And I'm like, and I'm unwilling to like go off that veracity. So yeah, we'll just take the 2-inch surge here and reform the unit just slightly, so it'll hit this unit before it hits this one. So that's good enough for me. And then these guys go into the front, so probably some dead soul flayers with a flank charge as well, and a drain life if they want. And yeah, that's about it. I think the monolith, yeah, it could have run forward, so I'm surprised it didn't here. Maybe it hasn't moved just yet for this picture. Nope, that's its final position. So it's going to go for the surge. Of course, it gets the surge, so it hits the flank. And over here, the monolith fires. It looks like it's down to 3 wounds. Yeah, that's because it fired off a drain life into the soul flayers who are probably dead, only dealing 1 wound, so it can only heal the 1 off of itself. So I'm cool with that from the lightning bolt. And over here, the enslaved guardians archers fire into my horde. It's only 1 unit that fires here too, and they just manage like 5 wounds, and I'm like, well, shit. So you just get that spike from time to time, even on 6s. So get them, kill them off. Over here, just showing off that the soul flayers died. Of course, all these soul flayers died, so the unit that was right here and right here are gone, and that is going to be the end of turn shot. As you can see, the second unit fired into these scarecrows. I might have actually had cover, right? Because when they're firing, I believe this unit at some point is going to clip and give me cover, and then this is going to give me cover because they're firing into my front, and my 50% mark, right, because this is a bisected 2 regiments placed together, is right there if we draw it, and you can see the step is right there. So I might have had cover anyway. Anyway, it doesn't matter too much. I took a couple wounds. Who cares? So that's going to be the end of turn 2. So next turn we start scoring, or more accurately, my opponent starts scoring. So I'm going to have to well, maybe pull back a little bit. I mean, I'm kind of all over the place. So let's see what turn 3 brings with Nightstalkers. So turn 3 Nightstalkers. Again, this unit is at 9 wounds. I really want to do a play where I Wind Blast. So I could place Esanishra. I could not get Esanishra more than 1 away from these guys and within 1 of this, where it would drag it over with the Enthrall, because you move in a straight line, right? So you don't go towards Esanishra, right? Your flank goes, to the left or to the right, or your front, the cardinal directions. So instead, I'm like, I have to kill this unit at 9 wounds. It has to go, right? I can't have Sebek Ray rolling around, because Sebek last turn had to hide a little bit to make sure that Esanishra didn't just nom him down, right? So had to hide, and all the wounds are still there. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do it. I'm just gonna take the front charge with this unit of soul flayers. I've got the flank with Esanishra again, and I'm just gonna try to take them out real quick, and then I can do some overrun shenanigans, make sure that this is a front. It's gonna be hindered. So yeah, let's go for that. I take, so the unit that was right here, you can see is all the way over here. That is because my opponent has left a 2-inch gap, right? In case you're wondering, 50 millimeters is 1.96 inches. So if you leave a 2-inch gap, 50 mil models can fit quite snugly. So yeah, my soul players have a flank charge, can see this unit, of course, because I'm height 4 and are within 20 and just barely fit. So I fly them up. I also have a front charge, so I take the front charge first, and then I snug these guys down. That is just for better positioning, because over here I was like, I might want to take this unit right here and take the flank onto these Revenant Cav. And I actually kind of forgot for a second that they were in fact Revenant Cav. So I'm glad I didn't do that, because it's unlikely I would have killed them. Instead, I take them and go into the side of the skeletons. Again, they are phalanx, and I am a flying large cav with TC, but none of that matters to the flank. So just take the flank charge there. The doppelgangers go in as well, just as a little backup. And then my opponent has left a perfect landing spot for more soul flares onto their soul snare. And I'm like, well, yeah, of course I'm going to take that. Screw the soul snare. So I fly in there, go for the kill. Still at 3 wounds, so I'm feeling good about that. That's 27 attacks on 3s and 2s. Soul Flayers have failed it in the past, which you'll know if you've watched my Masters videos. So anyway, I'm going to go for that. And then I move both Red Leader and Blue Leader back onto this hill, because I'm going to start firing some lightning bolts. And this is when I kind of, click that these guys are in fact Revenant Cav and not Second Ed Skeleton Cav. So I keep them out of the line of sight of this unit. I am within 16 inches, but of course they cannot see me. If they want to go for long bong surges, go for it. And then this unit can charge into me. I can't really move the scarecrows very well right now, because I hid behind this to grant myself cover and then didn't take it. So good job me. I place my Horde just trapped against the Scarecrows because I don't want any shenanigans to happen to her. And then I also still have my Banechant, or not my Banechant, but my Aura of Vicious onto the Doppelgangers, and then I can cast Banechant onto the Soul Flares because they are tall enough, and they're the better unit anyway. So we're gonna go for that. And here is the the end. The Soul Flares versus the Soul Snare. The Flare is better than Snare, takes them out quite easily. Then these guys managed to take out that horde of enslaved guardians archers, terrible name, and we will end up reforming, essentially, as you might think, like these guys just turn 180 and these guys just turn 180, I think. No, these guys aren't 180, because I want to stay out of the charge arc of these enslaved guardians archers, terrible name again, and then these guys are just going to stare down. And then I did manage to kill off this unit of skeleton spearmen, and then I just turn with the soul flares to face off against the enslaved guardians because it's a front charge. They cannot, they cannot surge my flank because they cannot decrease the distance between these two units that are both within 1. So I'm not too worried about it. And also, if they flank charge this unit, I don't know if that's really different from a front charge because this unit does have 4 damage on it. So it's probably dead anyway. So that's going to be that for turn 3. Nightstalkers. Oh, I should mention that, yeah, I did manage to kill out the very wounded enslaved guardian horde, and then I turn these guys, again to eat a front. They can't get a flank, they can't move fast enough. Then Esanishra is out of their charge arc with her side shuffle. She just crab shuffles over there, and that's going to do it for turn 3 Nightstalkers. Let's move into turn 3 for the Empire of Dust. I almost said enslaved guardians, but that's pretty close too. So turn 3, Empire of Dust, we have these guys, yeah, they go into the front of the Soul Flares. They are hindered, so that is on average going to be 9 hits and then 8 wounds. So I'm a 13-15, that's going to be a 7 twice to kill me because, of course, Sepic Ray inspires me. So I'm not too worried about it, but again, dice are dice, so we don't know what's going to happen. These guys are like, we can't do anything. They can reform, but they can't shoot, apparently, when they do that, right? Because they are, I guess, reload. So, which you think I would know, because I, again, have played these, but that's never been a thing I've done. I've either charged with them when that happens, or I have just shot with them, right? So yeah, they can't really do all that much, right? Because they started within 1, we were flush, right? Like there's an infinitesimally small line between us, and so they're like, well, we could just turn to face you, I guess. But instead they decide to roll on over here. I feel like this is a mistake, right? Like they should have just turned to face me. The rule is when you start within 1 inch of an enemy unit, you cannot decrease the distance, right? I believe that's the current ruling, which turning to face wouldn't decrease that distance. It wouldn't give you a 1-inch gap, but it doesn't decrease it. So I think it's illegal to just turn. So I think maybe we made a mistake here, and they just decide to crab shuffle because they feel like they can't do anything else. So anyway, the Cav here just turn. They can long bomb surge if they want to from Sepic if he had entered the forest, but he doesn't. The Monolith, I guess, could do the surge, but the Monolith is going to do a surge over here instead. This unit, we haven't moved it yet when I took the picture, but it does what we were just talking about, right? It's going to turn itself like so. That's a terrible square, but making sure that it does not decrease the distance here, which is basically nothing, and it does not decrease the distance here, right? But its corner still hits this unit first before it hits the corner of this unit. So this will be a rear charge instead. So it's going to be the Monolith's plan. And then the Revenant Cab go into the front of my Scarecrow Horde, so meh. And over here, yeah, the Monolith, as I said before, yeah, they just turn. The corner here will hit before it hits this, so they go for it. It's a 1-inch surge because it's less than 1 inch. These guys, did we walk it back? No, I guess. I'm not, yeah, okay, cool. So we did realize that was a mistake, and just moved the unit back, and my opponent went like, screw it, I'll just take shots anyway. Shoots at my red leader here, does 1 wound to it. It's a 13-15, so it's fine with that. And over here we have the death. The Enslaved Guardians did manage to kill off my regiment of Soul Flayers. They roll like bonkers. I think they did 10 wounds to me, and I was like, just another day in Soul Flayer land. So they get obliterated. But things don't, and then of course the rear charge onto those Soul Flayers, they get obliterated, but that's about it. So I lost 2 more regiments of Soul Flayers, while my opponent has a pretty dominating lead. It's only Esanisha left on this left flank, but the center is still mine, right? The Scarecrows have managed to stave off the charge from the Revenant Cav there, and then the unit here has managed to survive the Soul Flayers right here. Both these Soul Flayers are alive, and again, the shooting didn't really do anything. So I am down with this. We are going to start counting up the score this turn. I don't have a marker for it, but it's something like this. Actually, let's do that one again. So it's like this-ish, right? So we end up doing the score. My opponent has 3 unit strength here, and then has 1, 3, or that's going to be 2. So 1, 3, 4, and 5 unit strength here to my 2, 4, 7. Because this unit of Scarecrows is exactly straddling the line, meaning I have to choose a zone, and I choose this one. And then my opponent has... of course, 3 here to my 2, 5 total, right? So they are controlling this square. So they're going to they have 1 square to my 1, 2, 3, 4 squares, right? So I don't score, but I do stop them from scoring, which is pretty good. I shut down that tempo lead that you get for second player in this scenario. So with that said, let's move on to turn... Oh, we'll do a scoring, I guess. Yep. So right there is the score, 0-0, and we move on to turn 4. So turn 4, for the Nightstalkers, I finally get to do a little Esanisha play. And this is because, so I could have just charged into Sebek Ray, just flat out charged. But by doing it this way, I place myself 1 inch away from her. I have Enthrall 7, and that 1 inch makes it so I actually am dodging the line of sight of these Enslaved Guardians. So I'm not going to get slapped around by them immediately after going into Sebek Ray. So it seems good to me. I again take a double charge here, and this time a double flank into the Enslaved Guardians archers. Terrible name. Looking to kill them off real quick. The Scarecrows, I believe more visible here. Scarecrows take a charge into the Revenant Cav, just looking to take them down. And then I do have a double charge into this unit of Enslaved Guardians. I have a front charge, it's double front charge, but again, I have Enslaved Guardians, and I've kept myself within range for the Vicious for both these units, and I can Bane Chant either of them. I would love to Bane Chant these Scarecrows to manage to maybe kill off this unit of Revenants before I have to do anything. As you can see before, this is I went for a Lightning Bolt play on one of these turns, and the plan was to get just a few wounds onto them so that I could finish them off with the Scarecrows, right? But I kind of need a Bane Chant to get that going, and this combat is really important, right? Like, it's very likely that I kill them, right? Like, that's going to be, 27 attacks on 3s and 3s. That's pretty good for a -17 unit, but still maybe not good enough. So instead, I'm going to go for that play. Probably go for the Bane Chant here. So that's going to be that. I actually just noticed a play here that I missed, because I believe I go for double Lightning Bolt onto this unit of Rev Cav, hoping to drop them, just because they could kill a unit of a Revenant, regiment of Soul Flayers on their own, right? Like, they have enough tax to do it. But I feel like I might have wanted to go for a Wind Blast play. I love casting Wind Blast with my Mind Screeches. It is a very underutilized spell. Wind Blast is great, in case you haven't caught on by my list. But yeah, I feel like I should have gone for the Wind Blast here. I could have pushed the Monolith out of Inspire range for this unit and this unit pretty easily, right? But still within my 12 inch, and also I'm inspired by my lone inspiring source right there. So yeah, I probably should have gone for that. Just push the Monolith away, and then make this not a reroll, and then I might have been able to do the Bane Chant here instead. Anyway, I don't do that. I go for the Lightning Bolt play. So Esanisha does manage to cast Enthrall, drag Sebek Ray over to her, and with 5 attacks, just one-shots him, so I'm cool with that. Sebek Ray is a dash 13 and defense 4, but I only have 5 attacks, right? Hitting on 3s. I just sink all 5 and pick it up, right? On the roll, what is that, an 8 twice? Just roll it even, easy. Or a 7 twice because I do have Dread. So yeah, I'm down with that. Esanishra manages to do it. She's a good lass. Then, yeah, of course, the Doppelgangers plus the Soul Flayers do manage to kill off the Enslaved Guardians that were right there. And then these guys managed to kill off the Enslaved Guardian Archers. And here we go. It's a rough turn 4 for the Empire of Dust. Because not only... So I did Banechant this unit in the end. Not only did I kill off these units, I also killed off those... Revenant Cav with my Scarecrows, with just no... Well, they had Vicious, I guess, but they didn't have any other buffs, so they just pick them up, get them out of here. And my opponent is down to 1 horde of Enslaved Guardians, one troop of Revenant Cav, and a Monolith. and I'm like, ooh, that is a rough one. But I am going to start scoring because it's my turn 4. So if we divide the table up again, it hasn't changed too much except for the fact that I've deleted the units over here. So I am sitting on one table, or 1 square, 2 squares. I definitely have this one now. So I have 4 squares to my opponent's 1 because of these guys right here. So, yep, that's going to do it for me. And let's see, Nightstalkers up to 1, Empire Dust still at 0. Let's see what they can do with their turn 4. So Empire Dust, oh, I guess we're just going to skip their turn 4, turn 5. So, yeah, this is actually turn 4 Empire of Dust. I've made a mild error here. So we have Empire Dust going over here. They just move over to Esanishra because I'm like, yeah, you could get a little cheeky play if you want to with the Monolith to get these guys into it. But again, they're going to be hindered, but that didn't bother them last time, so maybe they'll just pick up Esanishra as well. We have the Revenant Cav going into the front of those Soul Flayers, as you might guess. And over here, there's nothing left to do. So they just sit there in the shooting phase. The Monolith goes for it. Does manage to get that surge off. It was not the easiest surge, but I mean, it wasn't the hardest surge. It just wasn't a 1. But yeah, of course, as I said before, it'll be hindered. So that's going to be 18 attacks on 4s and then 3s, and I'm a dash 13. So I'm not super worried about it, but. Let's see how that's done every other turn. I haven't been worried about it. So yeah, they of course pick up Esanishra in one go. So yeah, And over here, things go significantly better, of course, because it's not the left flank. So I only take 3 wounds. I'm disordered, but I'm not wavered, which is great for me. And of course, I don't know what this is showing. I guess this is my turn now. So this is actually turn 5. Instead of my opponent's turn 4. But at the end of this, it's the same thing. They don't have enough unit strength to actually block me, so they do not score anything. So it's still Nightstalkers 1 and 0 for the Empire Dust. So turn 5, I guess, we have Blue Leader and Red Leader firing off some parting lightning bolts into these Enslaved Guardians because I was like, I might as well go for the table wipe. I only managed 3 wounds, so there's no roll there. And up here, I take all the charges I can get, so I only have the 1 charge into the Revenant Cav. I do get a Banechant up, which is cool, because my Wizard is down here, or maybe over here. Get the Banechant right there. As you can see, the Monolith is gone. That's because I had a rear charge. I had a rear charge with the 1 unit of Soul Flayers, and a front charge with some Scarecrows. So yeah, I picked that Monolith up. And I managed to pick up that Revenant troop, as you might guess. Again, I mean, they only have 9 attacks, but, when they hit the hit, they're just a real swingy unit. And that is going to be the end of turn 5, because my opponent sits here and goes, I can pivot this unit, right? Like, it can turn, and I could just leave, right? The Enslaved Guardians will never get a charge on turn 6. They might get a turn 7 one, but they'll probably be dead by then. Especially because, again, I still have Wind Blast, right? 27 on the table. So if I decide these Enslaved Guardians aren't going to get a charge, they're not going to get one. So yeah, my opponent just calls it there, and it ends up being a Nightstalkers 3 to Empire Dust 0 victory to the Nightstalkers. So, an interesting game. We'll get into it in conclusions and list discussion. So to go through the conclusions of the actual game, it was really, we had some really swingy dice there. I know my opponent remarked that they felt like they had a chance in it, right? Because of that turn 2 kerfuffle where, like, you know, I went for a flank charge and it didn't quite get the dice right. It wasn't like I didn't roll horribly. 9 wounds is fine. It's just not great, and it set me up for a big loss if I failed it. Then my opponent came back and took over the left side almost entirely, very easily. But unfortunately, they couldn't capitalize on it too much because the right flank with the doppelgangers just went so well for me. The center, I mean, it was pretty back and forth with the center, right? Like the crystal pendant completely obliterated that horde of scarecrows, along with a good roll from the enslaved guardians, terrible name, archers right after it. But we did manage to pull it back with the Empire Dust with the Nightstalkers anyway, just because I just have so many scoring units and such a high unit strength on those, right? Because all those soul players are unit strength too. So yeah, I really liked it. Let's go through the lists. I'll start with the Empire Dust. So this Empire Dust list is, it's pretty good. Empire Dust list with the change to withdraw and advance, right? Empire Dust is just very weak in comparison to like an undead. They still have lists. When I say like Empire Dust are weak, I don't mean, you know, they can't win games. I mean that they have so few builds that are worth running right now. You know, expert players are expert players, so they can win with whatever. But Empire Dust right now, there's not a lot of reasons to play them over Undead, but there are a few, and one of them is Enslaved Guardian X, right? Like, you can take the archers, you can take the regular ones. They're great, right? And this list really spammed them really hard, right? So I look at it and I go like, I love Skeleton Spearman regiments, but I don't think one does anything. I feel like my opponent put it in here. I mean, again, there's 25 points missing from the list. So, like, they put them in here maybe because they couldn't get the 10 points for Revenant Cav, but again, there's points for it. So I would say these should be Revenant Cav as well. You are going to lose 2 unit strength, which is a lot, but I am a big proponent of it's the number of scoring units, not unit strength, that is super important. Right. Of course, unit strength is great. Having unit strength 4 over 3 will win you a lot of stuff, but it's more important that you can just have a unit that scores, right? That you have scoring units at the end of the game. So, yeah, I do think that they brought the 3 really important stuff in Empire Dust, which is the Monolith, the Soul Snare, and Sepic Ray. I do not think Shobik is an auto-include even slightly. Really good unit, but you do not need it for most Empire Dust builds, I think. Revenant Champion, I love this unit. It's super fun. I think it's the best version of the Crystal Pendant, horse guy, because it's fearless, it's def 5, it inspires itself, it has 4 attacks. Of course, it only hits on 4s, but I prefer having 4 attacks on 4s than 3 attacks on 3s. But it's still 140 points, and this sort of is that thing with the Empire Dust, is that nothing is cheap in the desert, right? You always have to pay. So, yeah, I'd probably drop this and bring yet more Revenant Cav. You could also look, instead of Revenant Cav at all, at bringing Scavengers. I think Scavengers are a pretty great unit, and I think that people like Mark Taylor have showcased that in the past. So anyway, I do think that this list is very close to being great, and I think right now it is very good. So, if I were to say, because when I'm looking at competitive lists, there's the non-viable list, there's viable, which non-viable basically means that you're going to have a losing record, in my opinion. So 6 games, you can go 2-4, right? A viable list is a winning record, so that's 4-2, or 2-3, 3-2, right? And then a podium list is a 5-1 or a 6-0, right? Kind of a list. And so when I look at this is the viable, right? This is the show up, be competitive at a tournament, right? This list will do that. But podium, I'm not so sure. With some tweaks, it probably could. Probably be really good. But anyway, that's all I have to say about the Empire Dust. Nightstalker list. This is weird. I really like it. I love spamming Soul Flares. I brought them again. I brought them to Masters, but I only brought 2 regiments. And afterwards, I really spent some time trying to figure out what went wrong with them. Because, I'd get flank charges and I would do 2 wounds, right? To units where I'm like 3s and 2s, I do 2 wounds, right? Or I'd get rear charges and do nothing. And I was just like, what is happening? And I discovered that I just think it's the small dice variants of them, which is that, you know, they can just fail you from time to time, and they're really expensive. But instead of going, well, then put it in the bin, right? That unit doesn't work. It's a super unique unit, right? Like, also, Enslaved Guardians can bring Wind Blast 5, so a thing to think about. But the Soul Flayers, right, having Wind Blast 5 on a flying height 4 unit, right, that can fight, right, like that's a decent in a fight and has stealthy, has a lot of value. I think that there's something there. And so I went, what if I just brought a ton of them? And to get those, you know, of course I had to bring the Scarecrows, you know, to get the unlocks, because I was like, well, I kind of want to have some Mind Screeches for a bit more ranged pressure, right? Instead of just wind blasting people, being able to actually shoot them and deal damage. Although I do think the Mind Screeches could go. This is something I'm looking at where I'm like, I'm not sure if I need them, but I do like the theme, right? Because they also cast Wind Blast. Doppelgangers are amazing, so the idea would be like, I wouldn't have any Scarecrows anymore. I would just have 3 regiments of Doppelgangers or more, because they're great. The horror is really good. Unfortunately, the vicious aura feels a little wasted when I'm running Scarecrows, and I'm not running spam Scarecrows, right? Because it doesn't affect the Soul Flayers at all, right? It's only infantry. So I don't know. If I did that change where I took out the Mind Screeches and took out the Scarecrows and replaced them with Doppelgangers, I'm definitely keeping that vicious aura. But otherwise, the vicious aura is kind of meh, because it's 30 points. I could spend that better. Esanisha, of course, is amazing. She's another thing that I could drop, much like the Revenant Champion. I love her, but she's 160 points, and I could figure out a cheaper way to do that. One of the things I have messed around with is running a Banshee instead of Esanisha, but then it's all my eggs are in the Wind Blast basket, right? But still, I might mess around with that in the future. Anyway, I hope you guys liked the battle report, and until next time, bye.